So until now, this channel's mostly been cover videos, some travel gear reviews, a few videos from when I used to travel around. It's kind of all over the place. There wasn't really any kind of central theme or anything. Today, that's changing. I am relaunching this channel, specifically in the audio engineering niche. For the past 7 or 8 years, I've been working in the audio industry, and I've been lucky enough to meet some incredible people. So I've had this idea for a while now to start a YouTube channel where I can create content with some of these engineers, producers, manufacturers, studios, etc. But to be honest, every time I sat down to do it, I kind of got a little overwhelmed. Making content is obviously a lot of work. I know that from my day job, which we'll get to in just a second. And it's kind of nerve-wracking to put yourself out there on the internet. And so I was on the fence about it for quite a while, to be honest. And I talked to a couple friends who are YouTubers, and they reminded me that you only do this if you think it's going to be fun, because the odds are nobody will watch your content. The odds are you're not going to make any money doing it. So only do it if you would actually enjoy it. And I think it would be super fun. When I thought about it, I was like, I'm at the end of the day, I'm just going to be sitting down with friends and talking about audio, playing with cool gear, whatever. So here we are. It's going to be a lot of fun. So on this channel moving forward, I'm going to focus mostly on audio. We'll get to sit down with some of the coolest people in the audio engineering world. I will do some gear deep dives. I'll show you behind the scenes looks at some of the recording industry's biggest gear brands, recording studios, and I'm even going to be doing a couple of long form documentaries about some legendary figures in the audio space, which I'm super excited about. Speaking of that, we'll also be touching on video production from time to time as well, because that's kind of what my day job involves a lot of. Making video content for audio brands. So speaking of that, I will tell you who I am, and we will kind of go back from there and talk about how I got here, because it's kind of a crazy, weird story where I basically was in Peru with no money left and had to find a way to get money, and a series of events led me to where I am now, owning a marketing agency for audio brands. But I want to talk about before all that and how I got here. So 2013 and 2015 were kind of like these, I would call them watershed years in my life. 2013 was kind of like I went on a trajectory. 2015 kind of like launched me further, but also like a little bit different in that trajectory. But basically, prior to 2013, I had just worked like the oddest collection of odd jobs, basically. After high school, I was a rough framer, a carpenter, which is actually what I went to school for, but I lasted like a half a summer before washing out of that, and I lost my license due to having too many points. I was basically a shithead kid and just sped around everywhere in my little Pontiac Firebird and got my license suspended. And so I, at that point, joined a band and started making a little money playing gigs for the first time. So that was when I was kind of like, you can make money playing music. Whoa. Then I went back to work. And yeah, I mean, over the years, I worked at a golf course. I worked at a call center. I was a ceiling maintenance specialist, which is basically like the Subway sandwich artist title for a dude that has a pole with a sponge on the end of it. And I would follow around this guy named Bill that had this sprayer that would just spew heinous chemicals onto the ceiling and into my eyes and lungs. I digress. And then I was at Verizon Wireless for a few years as a phone sales guy, and I thought that was going to be my thing. I worked at this franchise, and there was kind of this path where I could get my own store that I would manage and have kind of sort of ownership of, and that all fell apart in 2013. The whole franchise got shut down because my boss at the time was doing some shady shit, and Verizon found out and like canned the whole franchise, fined him tens of thousands of dollars. It was quite a shock to walk into on a random Wednesday. And so I, went out to my car and like sat there and was like, well, what the hell am I going to do now? And I kind of had two realizations. One was I had always wanted to travel, and I had kind of like daydreamed about being able to just, you could technically go anywhere. Nobody's stopping you. You could go work on a cargo ship and get a ride to Europe. All of these insane half-brained ideas that I had going through my head. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to do something like that, now is my time to do it. And so I decided to go on this round-the-world backpacking trip with a couple friends of mine. And the idea was that we would sell basically most of our worldly possessions and save up some money, and then try to make money as we went, doing odd jobs and playing music and stuff. The dumbest idea. It didn't work at all, which I'll get to in a minute. And the other realization was that I could make close to what I was making at Verizon, which wasn't a ton, but it was enough to, live, have my own place and everything on. And I realized, dude, if I could book enough shows, 150, 200, 300 bucks a show at all the bars, restaurants, whatever around my hometown of Chillicothe, Ohio, I could make close to what I was making at Verizon. And so I called every bar and restaurant that I knew, and I started doing that. And yeah, I made close or more than I did at Verizon just playing music full time, which was incredible. I didn't have a boss anymore. I could, make my own schedule as long as it was working every single Friday and Saturday. And yeah, it was pretty great. I played at bars, restaurants, nursing homes, beauty pageants, anything that you can think of where a musician could conceivably be placed in the corner of a room and asked to play some acoustic cover songs. I was there, not belting out Wagon Wheel. Anyway, I went on this backpacking trip, 2013, and it completely changed my life. We had three of us, me and my friends, Corey and Aaron. We had $4,000 to last us what was going to be a year of international traveling. We spent about half of that in the first 2 weeks, landed in Spain and Europe, and just immediately partying in the hostels. I would walk 500 miles and I would taking trains everywhere. And yeah, we had a come to Jesus moment sitting on the side of some railroad tracks in Switzerland, looking at our pile of cash and realizing that it was more like a palm full of cash. And so we started hitchhiking, hopping trains. We started staying with locals using couchsurfing.org and just other people we'd met along the way and stuff. And it was insane, but it was awesome. It was life-changing. And I met so many people who helped us out, who would give us rides, buy us dinners, give us a place to stay. Then we went to, and we, for a while, ended up in Rome, outside of Rome, in this nature preserve, living in this nature preserve for a month. And every day, me and Corey, my friend who also played hand drums, would go in and busk for tips on the street all day, come back, make a pasta dinner. It was a surreal experience. And we left there, we went to Southeast Asia. That is where I kind of learned how to start making money online. I started getting some freelance gigs that was pretty much enough to support us in Southeast Asia. You can get a hotel room for $2 to $3 a night at that time, or a hostel room, not a hotel room. Went to Australia, New Zealand, and then back to LA to stay with some family here, and then back home. And I came back home and I picked up right where I left off. I started playing music again. And the next thing that happened was my friends booked me for this music festival that they ran in Chillicothe called Paper City Music Fest. There's a paper mill in the town, that's why it's called that. And they booked this Colombian band to play there, El Caribe Funk. And I had been kind of soft planning a trip to South America for the following winter. And so I introduced myself to them. We kind of hit it off. And long story short, they booked me to play at their music festival in Tuluá, Colombia the following February. So I decided that I would go down a month or two early, bounce around, and just have myself a wonderful time in South America, which I did. I flew into Peru, I went to Machu Picchu, hung out with the llamas, and then I zipped back to Lima, Peru, where I had planned on just staying there for a few days and then heading somewhere else. But I met this amazing group of people there and made a couple really good friends, and I just couldn't leave. I stayed there for over a month, and I kind of had to at one point because I had ran out of money. I owed the hostel $150, $200, something like that, and I had $30 left in my bank account, and I had no idea how I was going to pay it. I tried a couple of platforms where you could play live streams and stuff, and I would get a little bit of tips here and there, but yeah, nothing to support myself with. I had about $30 left, and I didn't know what to do. So I've always had a desire to kind of do my own thing. I always knew I wanted to own my own business, and playing music full time had kind of really gave me the understanding that it was possible, that I could at least make some living without having to work a 9 to 5. albeit it was a lot of work. I didn't like the schedule anymore, and it really wasn't that much money, right? There's a limit to how many shows you can play, and if you're just playing cover songs like I was, it's not like you're going to get booked for big money anywhere. And so I was always looking for what my business was going to be, and I was in all these Facebook entrepreneur groups, and in one of them there was this guy who was talking about drop shipping. Now, this has become a Reddit buzzword now, and there's a lot of like gurus out there trying to sell you the drop shipping course now. But remember, this is early 2015. This stuff was kind of still in its infancy of the mainstream, I would say. And what this guy was doing was like mega illegal. He was basically, I'm not going to name names because obvious reasons, but basically he was going onto AliExpress, which is like the Chinese Amazon, basically. And he was buying these Elsa dresses from Frozen, like a Halloween costume, Elsa dress. And that September and October of the previous year, he had basically built a store where he was selling these costumes. He would get them from a supplier overseas for like $5 or $6. He would put them on his Shopify store, mark them up to $20 or $25. Then he would run a Facebook ad that shows the dress with some copy to moms that had daughters between the age of 3 to 8 or some variation of that. And he sold an insane amount of those things. And I had remembered seeing something in one of those groups with that guy talking about it, and that he was doing like a free course on how to do it. So I was like, okay, if it's free, I'll check it out. So I checked it out. It seemed like maybe it could be viable if I found a product that I actually thought I could sell. And what did I have to lose? Well, I guess I had $30 left to lose. So I found this backpacking stove that I had actually used myself because I didn't want to have something where I would have, half of something that I sold, people would come back and be like, this thing's a piece of shit, I want my money back or something, So I had tried it myself. I knew it was a decent product, and I could get it for $5 from AliExpress. I put it on there for $25, and I wrote some nice product copy. I made some Facebook ads targeted to backpackers and wrote product copy for that, made the product images, and after all was said and done, the domain name, everything else, I had like $5 left. And my best friend in the hostel, Fede, this Argentinian guy, he was the only person there who knew what was going on, that I didn't have any money, and he was kind of looking after me. He would get me some free drinks from the rooftop bar now and then, and yeah, he was a good dude. He unfortunately passed away a couple years ago in a climbing accident, but I want to remember him for this how he had my back. Anyway, I was like, Fede, I've put $25 in this. I've got $5 left. Let's go get some dinner. So we went and grabbed a lomo saltado and some cervezas, and came back to the hostel. And when I got back on the hostel Wi-Fi, my phone dinged with a Shopify notification, and somebody had bought one of those stoves. And my brain just like twisted into knots for a second, because I was like, I think in the back of my mind, I was like, nobody's going to buy something from a store that has one product on it. But somebody did. And then over the next few days, a bunch more people did. And suddenly, again, like I said, that trajectory happened and my life took another turn. And I had all these orders coming in, was able to pay the hostel bill. I was able to book my flight to Colombia to go play at Sancocho Fest. Thank you, El Caribe Funk. And then I had a whole other problem on my hand, which was that all of these people had bought these products. I had no idea how to get the products to them. I'm a couple weeks into this, so I'm starting to get people messaging me like, hey, what's going on? When am I going to get this stove? And I cut my trip short. I was going to go to Central America and stuff, but I headed straight to Florida to stay with a friend. I shipped a bunch of those stoves to myself, shipped them all out. I had to issue some credits, that kind of thing to make it right for the people that had to wait and stuff. And long story short, I ended up having to hire a Mandarin translator to source manufacturers for me. I had a whole operation going, fulfilling all these orders and stuff. And at the end of that second month, I had sold over $30,000 worth of these stoves. Now, I could not conceive of that kind of money to make $20,000, $30,000 in a month. As somebody who grew up middle class, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich. My dad was a firefighter, sole provider, and I had never, I had been a ceiling maintenance specialist and a golf cart tech and a musician. So it was mind-boggling to me. And I did what you might imagine. I blew pretty much all of it on dumb shit. I bought a new vehicle. I was buying all kinds of stuff. I bought my friends dinners, drinks, whatever. And I blew through basically all of it. And then the Facebook ads just stopped working. One day, I realized I was upside down on the ads. I had spent more on ads than I'd sold. And, maybe it's an off day. It goes up and down. But the next day was the same. The day after that was the same. And I freaked out and I didn't know what to do. And I eventually lost everything. I had to shut off all the ads. I had to go to the bank and take out a loan to fulfill the last orders that I had to get them to people. And I was back to where I was. Broke musician, overdrafted bank account, the usual. So I went back to what I knew. The bars, the restaurants, the nursing homes, the beauty pageants, playing gigs. And I knew there was something there, right? It wasn't reinventing the wheel, drop shipping. It's buy low, sell high. It's as old as time. And I knew there was something there. I just had to rework what it was, figure out a better product, better ads, whatever it might be. And so I saved up a little bit of money, and I found these rings that were these animal rings. Basically, like it would have one side of it would be like the head of an elephant, and then the body wraps around, then its little feet would be on the other side. And they were adorable. And I partnered with this wildlife nonprofit here in LA called the Wildlife Way Station, and I donated a percentage of the proceeds with them, so it kind of had this cool story and meaning behind it. And I launched those that September of that year, 2015, and they exploded. They sold hand over fist. It got to the point where I realized I could make more money instead of drop shipping them, going directly to the manufacturers themselves, having them made, mass produced, and then shipped to a fulfillment center here in the U.S. so they could be shipped locally. People wouldn't have to wait. I had 5 employees who were just fulfilling orders, doing customer service, all kinds of things. At its peak, it was doing over $10,000 a week in actual profit. Again, more money than my brain could conceive. And again, I was doing my best to spend all of it, and I was miserable. I was the most depressed that I had ever been before and have ever been since. I was totally isolated in my apartment. I hardly ever left. I had these weird, strange feelings that I had never encountered before, of feeling like a lot of my family, a lot of my friends worked harder than I did, and why did I deserve to make way more money than they did? And I kind of tried to make up for that by buying gifts and dinners and whatever, and it just caused weird resentments, and I bragged a lot about how much money I was making, which is, from my perspective, I was just like excited and was like, I can't believe look how much money I made today. But in retrospect, like, who would want to hear that? So it was very strange, and I was not in a good place, and the Facebook ads again stopped working. It was much slower than it had been with the stoves. It was a gradual decline, and I had learned from before that I had to have money set back for when that algorithm changes. Before I didn't even know the algorithm existed. But by then I knew every few months they will change things, and you'll have to do a lot of testing to see what's working. Different ads objectives, different copy, different images, different targeting, different audiences, all those things. And over the course of 2016, I burned through all of that I had set aside. I racked up about $10,000 in credit card debt on top of that. And I would have good days, I would have bad days. I was barely putting in the time to work on it because I just didn't care at the end of the day. I wasn't passionate about it. I was selling cheap trinkets from overseas, It wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. And I kind of eventually reconciled with that of, I made insane money doing it, and that was cool, but I wasn't happy, and I would rather do something that I would be happy doing. So I decided to go back to school for audio engineering, and I went to this school outside of my hometown in Chillicothe called the Recording Workshop. Now it's called the Rec W. But it's this recording school that's like in the middle of nowhere, and it's like a recording boot camp. It's like 6 to 8 weeks, and you get a complete fundamental training on all things audio production, from recording to post-production to live sound, all kinds of stuff. And I remember whenever I was in high school and stuff, our bands would go in and play there, record there for free, and that we were the practice, for the students there. But since learning more about recording and stuff, a bunch of well-known recording engineers had gone there. Jakir King, Mills Logan, a bunch of people have went there. So it was kind of mind-blowing to me. I'm like, these people went to my tiny little hometown to go to this school. So that's where I went, and I got the foundations. Going into there, I knew nothing. I knew how to run my little PA system as a musician. So I knew basic EQ and stuff, but I didn't know anything about compression, reverb, anything. And I left with a solid foundation that I was able to build on, on my own through YouTube and meeting people who knew what they were doing and all those kinds of things. And I moved to California, to Los Angeles. I moved in with my aunt, who let me stay in her spare room, which was the only way that I am here in LA now. There's absolutely no way I would have made it that first year. I don't know how people do it without a support system. It's absolutely insane. So very grateful to you, Aunt Donna, and my cousins who helped me the first year that I was here. I was doing freelance work on Upwork and basically fixing people's crappy podcast audio with my pirated copy of Isotope RX5. Sorry, Isotope, I've since bought the license, but I didn't have a choice. And I saw a job listing pop up, a gig for a place in LA, which was weird because I was working for people all over, it's all online. And that was weird. So it was this company called Westlake Pro, and it said they were a recording studio designer, reseller, cool points right away. And so I basically ran their e-commerce website. I did the Facebook ads. I would help put together marketing campaigns. I started to learn a bit of video production there from the guy who was the marketing director before me. He was really good at producing videos and stuff. And he left, went to Slate Digital. That position was open. I spent a weekend agonizing about whether I wanted to try to go for the marketing director position, because it seemed very scary and I wasn't sure I would know how to do it. And I kind of felt like I had to do it at the end of the day. So I did. The owners there put a lot of trust and faith in me for being someone who, is still pretty green in the industry. It took me a solid year of learning my way around. I came from this background of Facebook ads and e-commerce where I can measure every single step of my sales funnel, and was thrust into this world that in some ways felt to me ancient. Like, wow, a lot of these deals still happen because Bill knows Bob over at Universal Music Group. A lot of person-to-person sales and B2B stuff, which was a totally new world to me. So it took me a long time, at least a solid year, to kind of wrap my head around where sales in the audio industry come from, and how these relationships are forged, what gets people excited about audio gear, stuff like that. And then, And then, like I said, I left there. I went to Focusrite Pro, and then now here I am. So that's my my origin story in the audio industry, and I hope it wasn't too long-winded. Anyway, I'm really excited about this YouTube channel. I cannot wait to share some of the content that I've been working on. We've got a video coming out with AEA microphones in the next couple of days. It might even get posted before this one does, depending. This is NAMM week when I'm filming this. So, all bets are off. And after that, we have a video with Soyuz Microphones. I sat down with one of the co-founders there, and we talked about how they built one of their microphones, which was really cool. They got some old Soviet-era Army surplus radio tubes that are in some of their mics, which is pretty interesting. And we even have a documentary that I'm doing with David Royer right now. We're going to be building a speaker cabinet together. Really, really excited about that. He is an amazing human being and one of the smartest people that I've ever met. And he heard that I had a wood shop. And so we both got really excited to build the speaker that he's been wanting to work on for years now. We're going to try to build it together. I'm going to build the box. He's designing all of it. He's testing all of it. And I can't wait to share that with you. So please hit the subscribe. Please let me know in the comments what kind of content you want to see on this channel. And yeah, I don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, because that's kind of what a lot of what I've learned in marketing. You know, you're taking an educated guess, you're trying stuff out, you're measuring the results. So we're going to try some interview videos. We're going to try some gear videos. We're going to try some documentaries, all kinds of stuff. And hopefully one of those things will resonate with some people. And all of you, please let me know what you want to see. So with all that said, I've got to get ready for NAMM. So I will see you in the next one.